What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So Nick, Saeed Nurmagomedov had his outing against Douglas Silva last night. This was a good fight. It was exactly what we have come to know from Saeed. Even though he shares the last name Nurmagomedov with the famous Khabib Nurmagomedov, he's actually more known for his striking than his grappling, and his striking was certainly on display last night.
Yeah, it definitely was, and that's a good name to have some like spillover chemistry with.
Yeah.
People probably just assume he's a younger brother. He kind of looks like one of those guys. He's got the beard and everything. Before we start shining up the winner, I want to say Silva is one of the most exciting guys that you're going to see at bantamweight that isn't in the top names or top rankings. He's fun to watch. He always brings a good fight, and I can think of a couple of fights in recent time that he hasn't gotten his hand raised, but certainly pushed the pace, and they gave him some tough opponents that were like up-and-coming prospects, and he gave them all they could deal with and then some, and usually puts on really entertaining fights. So I hope the UFC keeps him around. I don't know what his record is right now, wins and losses, but I hope they keep him around even though he lost.
Yeah, Douglas Silva is a perennial gatekeeper. I mean, 37 years old. Who has that body at 37, by the way? The guy is absolutely shredded. And Saeed Nurmagomedov is somebody that a lot of people, we talk about bantamweight being potentially the best division in the sport right now, and Saeed being one of the best fighters in that division, and certainly an up-and-comer to keep your eye on, somebody that when you think of who could be a future champ at bantamweight, you would be remiss to make a list without Saeed Nurmagomedov's name on it. So for Douglas Silva to get in there and do what he did last night was admirable. I did not score the fight 30-27 like I think two of the judges had it 30-27 and one had it 29-28. I agree with the 29-28. I do think Douglas did enough in that second round, especially when he took the back and was working the takedown and landed some good shots, that he certainly stole that round from Saeed. But the story here was Saeed's dynamic striking. He moves so well laterally. He was doing something that I've actually never seen anybody do before, which for me to say that is actually quite rare. He was doing that kick where you chop almost the knee area, but right above the knee. It's sort of almost like a teep kick, but it's not. It kind of stops your opponent from coming forward. But he was stomping the top of the quad, and then rather than bringing his foot down, he would then send a question mark kick over the top before he put his foot back on the ground. It was very strange, very unique, and I think it didn't catch Douglas flush, but if it had, boy, what a highlight reel knockout that would have been.
Yeah, like a double kick. You kick low and then kick high. Don't fake one or the other. Just go for both of them. I find that pretty impressive, and his striking is very electric. It's fun to watch. He moves more like one of those Yair Rodriguez type fighters, not the traditional Dagestani or Russian fighter that we're used to seeing, especially when you see the chin beard and you see the last name. You just assume he's going to take you down to the ground and maul you. But these guys, and I think there's a couple other ones that are on the UFC's roster, and maybe some of them actually are in Khabib's camp or related to him in some way, that are really, really good at striking, and they're also pretty good at on the ground. But DeAndre Silva seemed to have slight advantages in regards to taking the fight to the ground and going with slams and things like that. You know, he did exert a lot of energy to get the fight to the ground, but he was successful in some of those attempts. So obviously Silva DeAndrade with the age, he's not going to be climbing the ranks. He's probably just going to be a thorn in a lot of people's sides as they try to reach the top 10 of the bantamweight division. But Saeed Nurmagomedov is definitely on his way and in heading the right direction in the rankings. I just think that he's going to have an uphill battle when it comes to getting matchups and having people sign up to fight him so he can move up the rankings, because even though he has the last name, he isn't actually related to Khabib. You know, there isn't that close connection. A lot of people want to fight one of Khabib's guys and win just so they can kind of get that cross promotion. They can almost get Khabib in the headlines and things like that. And for Saeed, that's not really the case, but he is a really tough night out for whoever signs up to fight him. So a lot of people are just going to be avoiding him and waiting for different names to come about. But, it's inevitable. He's going to get his 2 or 3 fights in per year. Somebody's going to have to sign the dotted line, and I see him having some good success. Do I think he's a top 5 right now? No, honestly. I think he has some stuff to work on. I think he's got some skill and some strength that he needs to develop before he's really talked about as one of the title contenders. But I do think he would give everybody from 6 through 15 a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect assessment. I think he's top 10, but not top 5. I think when you think about Aljo the champ, Petr Yan, Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, I don't think Saeed is quite to that level yet, but lucky for him, he's still a very young fighter who's evolving, so I think he certainly will be at some point. So I would put him somewhere 7 to 10 in bantamweight, realistically, which in the toughest division in the sport is pretty damn good. And there's a few people that I think would be electric matches for him. One would be Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez just came into the top 15. He's part of this new generation of really clean, quick, lethal strikers, just like Saeed is. So I think a matchup there would be incredible. Yanez versus Nurmagomedov. Also, Song Yadong would be great, and Rob Font. I do believe Song Yadong is booked for a fight, but I'm not sure that Rob Font is, and he's coming off of a loss. So I think Rob Font versus Saeed would really say whether or not he's ready to test that top 5, because Rob sits just outside that top 5 ranking at number 7. So I think there's a lot of fun matchups to make for Nurmagomedov, but I agree with you. He's one of those guys, he hasn't built quite the name yet, even though the last name is famous. The first name for him is not. And so he's not quite to that level yet as far as fame goes, but the skill is certainly there. So I hope he doesn't get in a situation where it's hard for them to match him up with people because they just won't say yes. But I do have a good feeling that this young generation of bantamweight is kind of a throwback to the old school, and these guys are wanting to fight each other early and often. So I give the bantams credit for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of big names out there, and probably more often than not we're hearing them turn down fights than accept them. But there's a bunch of tough dudes in there. You got the Merab Dvalishvili, who we talk about.
Oh, God, how could I have forgotten about him? Yeah, he's top 5 material as well.
He's top 5 material. Nobody wants to fight him. Everybody wants to fight Sugar because of the placement of the card and just the magnitude of the fight. But that's a hard fight to get. And I don't think that the UFC, who's trying to build Sugar Sean, is trying to give him somebody with the last name Nurmagomedov or Dvalishvili. So Saeed should probably just keep doing what he's doing, keep working on that English, maybe up the trash talking a little bit. That's unlike them, but go for it. Try to make the most of this career, because with a few right performances and a few right post-fight speeches and just quick call-outs to hype the next fight, he could quickly climb up the ladder. And if he doesn't do it, it's probably an inevitable climb up the ladder. It might just take a couple extra years.
Well said. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you're new here, we talk all things combat sports, so if you're into that, we appreciate a subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.